I have one last piece on that, and it's unfortunately it comes from breaking news right before we went on today. So I have not had time to look at any analysis here. I haven't had time to even fully process what I read. I just know that it was profound and suggests a hidden world that has tremendous importance. So can we show that article about the apparent negotiation over the fate of Gaza today? Okay, so this is the Times of Israel. The title of the article says, Report: Netanyahu agreed to end Gaza war within 2 weeks after U.S. strike on Iran. Now, that already leaves me with a giant question mark, which is that title suggests the negotiation may have preceded the strike on Iran, that this was something that was done in exchange for something? Is that?
I don't know that I would read too much into the grammar in a headline.
Yep, I wouldn't. On the other hand, what is Iran even doing in
the story?
Yep. It does not make sense to me, and it suggests a world, an unthinkable world just below the surface. So let me read. It's not a very long article. It's just a report on the developing story. And I will leave open the possibility that it is, since this is live, that it was, I read it before we went on. It may have changed in the intervening hour plus. Right. So it says, after the U.S. strike on Iran earlier this week, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and U.S. President Donald Trump agreed on a rapid end to the war in Gaza and expansion of the Abraham Accords. Israel Hayom reports, citing a source familiar with the conversation. All right, already I'm struggling to understand what that could mean. According to the outlet, Trump and Netanyahu agreed in a phone call that the war in Gaza would end within 2 weeks. 4 Arab states, including the UAE, and Egypt, would jointly govern the Gaza Strip in place of Hamas. The terror group's leadership would be exiled and all hostages would be released. Notice there's no mention here that Hamas was involved in the negotiations. So again, I'm scratching my head. All right. However, Arab allies...
I don't know what the 2 other nation states are that are going to be in control.
True. However, Arab allies have repeatedly asserted that they will not take part in post-war rehabilitation of Gaza absent Israeli acquiescence to the Palestinian Authority gaining a foothold in Gaza as part of a pathway to a future 2-state solution. But Netanyahu has flatly rejected any Palestinian Authority role in the Strip. Moreover, Hamas leaders have also long rejected demands to go into exile. Trump and Netanyahu were joined on the euphoric call late Monday night by U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Israeli Strategic Affairs Minister Ron Dermer, says Hayom, the source. Gazans who wish to emigrate would be absorbed by several unnamed countries, says the report. Saudi Arabia and Syria would establish diplomatic ties with Israel, and other Arab and Muslim countries would follow suit. Israel, for its part, would express its support for a future 2-state solution conditioned on reforms made by the Palestinian Authority. Meanwhile, the leaders agreed that Washington will recognize Israeli sovereignty in some parts of the West Bank. The heady plan would explain Trump's fury over Israel's planned retaliation to Iran's violation of the nascent ceasefire on Tuesday and his Truth Social post calling for an end to Netanyahu's corruption trial. All right.
Every sentence just raises so many questions.
Raises so many questions. So obviously, Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu cannot unilaterally end the war in Gaza. I mean, they can end the Israeli part of the war in Gaza, but this suggests that Hamas was somehow part of this discussion, and yet it's phrased as if they weren't. So I don't know what could possibly be going on here. The idea that the strike on Iran was part of a negotiated deal over Gaza causes my brain to throw multiple errors. Now, if what is reported here is true, I think it's a big win for Trump. There's a lot here that's back on the table, including a two-state solution that many of us did not expect to see return. On the other hand, one more thing. This does rather unsettlingly suggest a kind of, well, it depends, but it's sort of, it's hard not to see ethnic cleansing here, right? You've got Palestinians who, it doesn't say who or how many, but have been bombed into oblivion and are now going to be absorbed by other nations.
Those who want to go into exile will be absorbed, it said.
Right.
So, and, those who want will be absorbed into other nation states unnamed. It seems, so my read on hearing this for the first time, having you read it, is the states, some of them named, some of them not, that the Muslim states that would be involved in both administering control over Gaza and in absorbing willing Palestinian exiles into their borders, would appear to have been in some control over there having been a war in the first place, if their involvement, but not Hamas's involvement, can supposedly guarantee such an outcome. That if leaders or forces in Syria and the UAE and Egypt and Saudi Arabia, being the four states I think mentioned there, and presumably others, can be somehow involved in these discussions with Trump and Netanyahu and arrive at this, yes, there will be a discussion of a two-state solution and all of this without Hamas being involved at all, then the support for Hamas has to have been in part from some of those places that are now going to be pulling support.
I don't know. I don't see it.
Okay.
It seems to me, obviously, what is true is that the U.S. is tremendously wealthy and powerful, and that basically there's something going on behind the scenes, a massive system of incentives.
Yeah.
And that incentives can motivate most parties, maybe any party, to sign on to an agreement if there's enough stuff that they want on the table. Mm-hmm. And so anyway, part of the reason that I thought it was important that we actually go here is that I think we are seeing the same utilitarian world poking through, that we're learning something about the administration, and it is
the
both
American administration.
Yeah. And in fact, I don't think, I think we were warned. We were warned in the form, the art of the deal, right? Donald Trump is, in his own mind, and I think credibly, a master deal maker. Deal making does not mean what most of us think it means, right? This is like, a master basketball coach who has weaponized the foul, right? And the idea is, the foul is just another move. It has a cost. It has a benefit, right? Blah, 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 right? Mm-hmm. Out of bounds, blah, blah, blah. So Donald Trump is a master of the art of the deal environment, in which things are incentivized that would not cross the mind of a normal person, that enables him to do things that other people couldn't do. It also endangers, it creates the danger that he will do things that other people couldn't do. Yep. And, I guess the point is this is some new version of Realpolitik.
Yeah.
Right. This is a level of realism about game theory that is, on the one hand, fascinating. On the other hand, it's terrifying. And I will point out, I've mentioned this scene before. People who have watched DarkHorse for a long time know that I'm not huge on reading fiction, love movies, but fiction I often don't engage with. But Catch-22 is one of my all-time favorites because it seems to have anticipated so many things that later happened. It's a great book. But the thing that I keep returning to is this scene in which Milo Minderbinder is this character who goes from a plucky young American who figures out how to feed the pilots who are stationed where he is in charge of the
mess.
The mess. He figures out how to feed them brilliantly by trading, and so he's got the best ingredients and he makes awesome stuff. But he goes from that, admirable, innovative character to this Hitlerian monster in a sort of a seamless transition. And at one point in his trajectory, he actually has contracted with the Nazis to bomb his own base. And he bombs his own base because the Nazis are going to bomb it. And if he arranges to bomb the base, he can make sure nobody gets hurt. So it's a good deal from the point of view of the Americans. And the whole point is that somehow the logic of markets is just unstoppable, and that it even extends to, well, look, if you're going to bomb my base, how about I just bomb my base and then I can get more out of, it's not so risky and bloody and all of that, and everybody wins. And the whole idea of like, you're going to bomb your own base because everybody wins, like, I don't even want that thought. Right? I don't want to live in a world in which we bomb our own bases because everybody wins, because I don't know what's down that road, but it's not good. It's madness. And so in any case, I think we are seeing in the Trump administration, on the one hand, possibilities that haven't been on the table in decades, like a two-state solution.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, Faustian bargains of a scale like that's just unfamiliar. And
yeah, we don't know what's on the table, much less what's actually been promised.
I mean, I can't even make heads or tails of that article. Like, why does the clock start at the American, I presume, bombing of Iran? That suggests that we, of course, without declaring war, because the president can't declare war, but effectively declared war on a sovereign state in a deal with another state about a war that it was conducting. I mean, what kind of crazy world are we living in? That just does not, I mean, admittedly, Iran funds Hamas, so it's not like there's no connection, but,
No, it looks, the article would have us believe that the Middle East is being reformulated with most Muslim countries and Israel on one side of an alliance and Iran on the other side. And that, Israel and Syria are on the same side now. This isn't something that was conceivable yesterday.
Right. On the other hand, we went and destabilized nations, including Syria. So it's possible that Syria isn't Syria in the sense that we understand it. And it's also, I don't know if I'm just simply losing my mind because this outstrips my ability to understand what could possibly explain it behind the scenes. In my defense, I will say, you and I study animals that don't talk, and we figure out what's going on behind the scenes there. So it's not like this is a completely foreign job, but there's something so weird about this. And, is Iran in on it? And in which case, at what level?
Yeah.
Right? What I think, based on what I've read, and this has become an impossible job to figure out what's actually going on in the world because we don't even have an agreement that we're supposed to compile a record. So there's like two versions of history. But what I think happened is we bombed 3 nuclear facilities that were put deep underground in order to protect them from bunker buster bombs. And we dropped some bunker buster bombs and we declared victory. And very likely the enriched uranium was salvaged, which I think was almost certain to be the case because, if you can put a enrichment facility, 100 meters underground, you can go another 50 meters for a storage facility. It doesn't strike me that there's any solution from bombing from above that's going to be capable of outstripping the ability to dig further. But anyway, so it looks like the enriched uranium probably survived. The nuclear program, I am led to believe, was set back months, not years. So was much accomplished? No. Did World War III start? Not yet. So that's good. A lot of people are crowing about the fact that World War III didn't start, as if you could do the logic that way. Well, all of you who were worried about World War III, you blew it because it didn't start. And it's like...
Our wins get smaller and smaller.
Yeah, try that logic on drunk driving, right? He got home unscathed. Drunk driving must be safe. All of you who were worried about the drunk driving, you're wusses, right? That's not how that works.
Nope.
So anyway, was Iran in on this? Were they in on it at the level that, kind of Milo Binder-ish, that they had agreed to be bombed or something? I don't know, but I just don't know what to think. That article is so mysterious. And the idea that there's a deal in which Hamas is not mentioned as party to the discussion, and yet appears it would have to have agreed to this in order for there to be a meaning.
Well, again, or some of the sources of its power, be it resources or men or whatever, are in on the deal, either some of the named parties or other unnamed states, that by their agreement to withhold whatever it is that they are currently giving to Hamas will be so weakened that the leaders can be exiled and the other parts of this deal can happen.
Yeah. Well, I guess the upshot, I think, is the logic of utilitarianism is diabolical, but undeniably powerful. And all of these parties have interests. And
yes.
One can imagine that somebody with a view of a larger deal-making landscape could shuffle enough things in enough places to get something novel to happen that none of us saw coming. I do think, actually, I don't know if it was added to that article after I read it the first time. I did not remember the first time I read that short article a mention of Netanyahu's corruption trial being canceled, that Trump had mentioned that. So I don't know if that's in the offing. I do think one thing that has concerned me about the events in the Middle East in the last 10 days or whatever it is, 12 days, is that Netanyahu has some very perverse incentives. He's a very dangerous guy, guilty of all sorts of things in my book. I became aware of just how diabolical he was over his handling of COVID, but that his desire to avoid his own incarceration over rather famous corruption on his part creates a tremendously perverse incentive for him to make war, to fail to resolve wars. Maybe in this case, it was used as a bargaining chip that, if he can remain free, that would incentivize him to sign up for things he wouldn't have done otherwise.
Despite evidence to the contrary, outsiders to a country tend to assume that the leader of the country is a patriot. And very often that's not the case.
Right. I see no evidence that he is a patriot, and I really wish the Israelis would remove him from power. I don't think, any military action that proceeds under him can be understood as legitimate in light of his role in creating the predicament in the first place. But anyway, who knows? I do think people should consider that scene from Catch-22 and whether or not we have just entered a landscape in which new things are possible because suddenly we're, the equivalent of bombing our own bases.
Yeah.
Yep.